What's up, Packers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Draft, brought to you by Badger State Brewing in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Today, UCLA pass rush extraordinaire Laiatu Latu, one of my absolute favorite players in this class. Now, is Green Bay going to be in a position to draft him? I'm not 100% sure. As we talked about, with Jared Verse, there's a little bit of question about this edge class, right? There's not a huge consensus. I would say Latu is probably the top guy on the consensus big board. Like if you go and actually look at what it is, but I think there's a chance, right, that he ends up the fourth or fifth edge off the board. I don't know that there's a great chance, but we're gonna profile Latu anyway, just because he's a player that I really like at a position that I've scouted for a long time, and he's kind of up there with Cooper DeJean as like a pie in the sky. This player's a Green Bay Packer. That'd be pretty fun. Laiatu Latu, as I mentioned, one of my absolute favorite players in this class, and just a treat to watch work. You start, especially obviously the end zone view where you can just watch him and the way that he goes after offensive tackles, the way that he wins those battles. It's just fun. It's just fun to do, and I really enjoyed my time scouting Laiatu Latu. Blue chipper. I saved the grade for the end, but I've got 7 or 8 blue chippers total in this class, and Latu's one of them. And that doesn't mean that he's necessarily on the same level of a Will Anderson for me, or of a Bosa brother as a prospect, or Chase Young as a prospect, or Aiden Hutchinson as a prospect. I don't know if he's on that level, right? But he's still, for me, a blue chipper. I mean, I don't see an outcome where he's not a highly productive NFL player. I would take him in the top 10 and I wouldn't even think twice. I really would. I think he's that good. And the guys that are really good, and you've seen this with Rashawn Gary, even though Rashawn kind of tailed off towards the end of the season. The guys that are good, that are really good athletes, that care and that try and that are relentless. TJ Watt, man. I mean, that's your A1 example. I'm not comparing Latu to TJ Watt, but like that's what we're talking about here, is a very good football player that also tries very hard. Motor just doesn't quit with Latu. And that's something that, you watch play in, play out. And folks, it's not like UCLA was winning a ton of games. Okay. This last year, it was not a banner year for the Bruins. It's not like he was in pursuit of a national championship or a Pac-12 title. But he just brings it, man. He loves football. I shouldn't say that. I don't know him, but you watch him on film, the passion that he plays with, down in, down out intensity, really seems to love the game and enjoys going to work, whether, again, like whatever the scoreboard says. Largely didn't matter as I watched, 6-7 games of his, 1 from 2022 and 5-6 from 2023, and just, golly, super impressed with Latu. Best hand fighter in the class, bar none. Then we talk about, your rip moves, your chop moves, your swim moves, your all those things. All of the technical hand fighting. Basically getting the offensive tackle's arm off of you. Those things, that their hands off you. He is the best one in this class. Okay. Danny Kelly at the Ringer. His player comp for him was John Claude Van Damme, which was funny. But I mean, that's like his ability to hand fight. That's why I think Danny said that. And I agree. I mean, he is, to me, just the top guy in this class as far as disengaging the opponent's hands from his body. And super fun to watch. A technician, a master of his craft, fun to watch. Gets off the ball at an elite level. And, there we're not, again, just talking about, okay, what do we think his vert is going to be? What do we think his broad jump's going to be? I'm talking about his ability to time the snap, his ability to get off the ball, his ability to set the terms of engagement with the offensive tackle, and really, be the force player in that situation, not the reacting player in that situation. Tremendous get off. Very quick, both in the run game and the pass game. His movements are decisive and they are quick. Here's an insane stat for you. And look this up if you don't understand the context. And I'm not saying that to be condescending. A lot of people throw a lot of numbers. This is not a commonly used number. So look up kind of what the norm is for this. He had a 40.7 pass rush win rate in true pass sets. 40.7% of the time he was beating the tackle in front of him. Like I said, go look up that stat. for context, where the NFL leaders were at, where maybe the average was in college football, this guy is a butt kicker, just flat out a butt kicker. You talk about Pro Football Focus's grading, and one of the reasons I do pay attention to that is consistency. Okay, Pro Football Focus, the way that works is one play is worth the exact amount as the next play. It was something that I mentioned with Tavondre Sweat. He is the highest graded defensive player at any position in the FBS, period. Highest grade from PFF for a defender. And that might be meaningless to you. And I would say that PFF's grades are not the gospel. I think I've said that exact phrase 10,000 times. But when I tell you that they have people that they've trained in kind of their way, watching every snap of every game, and then having a second person do the exact same thing, if you have a super high PFF grade, you are bringing it play in and play out because they grade play in and play out. So what I would expect from nothing else from that information would be consistency. And again, motor, trying on every play for kind of a mediocre UCLA team. That I keep going back to that. Like, you want winners win, but guys that still bust their ass on a losing team are impressive to me. Latu's got good size. There's, he's not necessarily, the quote unquote prototype. Let me just real quick. And this is great for both radio and podcast. I want to see is 6'5", 265. I don't know. I'd have to look and see if he actually, he must have, let's do even more great for radio stuff and real quickly look and see what the Senior Bowl had for Latu, because I do believe that he weighed in. Not everybody did. So the 6'5", 265, as I mentioned, is what was what was put out there by the sports information people at UCLA. And we don't ever necessarily want to accuse sports information directors of lying or trying to be dishonest, but maybe this guy or that guy gets measured with the cleats on. Maybe this guy gets measured with a 5-pound weight in his pocket. You never know. So the Senior Bowl had him at 6'4" 3/4, which is basically 6'5" and 261. So not a whole lot of lying from UCLA, and that's one of their things, right? So we've talked about Packer people. We've talked about the excellent work that Jacob Morley on Twitter has done. Their edge requirements are you need to be taller than 6'4". He is. Obviously, that's an official measurement from the Senior Bowl. You need to be more than 260. He is. Let's pay attention to that 80th percentile broad jump. And then for me, pass rushers, always pay attention to the 3 cone. So his thresholds, just from a strict height and weight standpoint, he's there. He's there for Green Bay, and that applies to every team. Bigger, stronger, faster is better. There are undersized guys or different shaped guys that succeed at a high level in this league. Everybody talks about Aaron Donald being one of them. In general, bigger, stronger, faster is better. Super insanely productive. 62 pressures his last year at UCLA. That's a extremely high number for anyone. 62 is a crazy, crazy number. And I would say he's above average against the run. And when you are as good at rushing the passer as he is, being an above average player against the run really raises the floor of your value, because I don't know how many guys are getting drafted at the edge position, drafted at all, as like, oh, we really like the way he sets the edge, and get that in undrafted free agency, right? When you have a guy who's creating 62 quarterback pressures in a Power 4 conference, that's a big deal when he is above average in the run game. I think his bend is fine. I think he's more of a Packers style rusher than a Ross Uglem style rusher, where I love the guys with a ton of flexibility and a ton of burst and the ability to just turn around that offensive tackle and put him on skates and speed to power with stuff like that. Latu is a worker. He'll work through you. I think very good athlete. We'll find out, at Combine or at his pro day, but he is a hand fighter, right? He's gonna counter. He's gonna try and hit you with a rip. He's gonna try and hit you with a swim. He's gonna try and do a number of things where he's gonna just try and beat you, and not necessarily go around you with elite ankle bend or elite hip bend. But it seems fine to me. It's not like the highest thing on his scouting report, as far as I'm concerned, the top is like, oh, this is a big time bend guy. He's not, and that's fine. A lot of guys win, without that being the case. Interested in his short shuttle time, interested in his 3-cone time. Cons, potentially serious medical red flag with his neck. I think he had to retire at some point until he was cleared by somebody else. But that's a real thing. You can do some research on that. But that's a con, certainly. If you think you're not going to be able to get a second contract, or if you're, there's all sorts of guys where stuff like this has happened and it's turned out really poorly. So I would just pay attention to the medical side on Latu. But I would guess that, I wouldn't guess. I know that the teams are going to go through his medical records if he, and it would be in his best interest to release those or to make those available to teams, because they're not going to probably invest millions of dollars in him if they don't get to see him. His medical checks at the combine are going to be important. And I would just say, like, and this might sound simple or obvious, if your team drafts Latu, they probably cleared him medically, or they did clear him medically. So if he's a Green Bay Packer, that next stuff was good enough for them. He's 23 years old right now. And we don't stress as much about that, as I've mentioned on a couple of these shows, with the NIL landscape, the ability to get paid while you are in college, and certainly with the extra year of eligibility brought to you by COVID. We're not stressing as much about the 5th and 6th year guys, certainly not about the 5th year guys, right? We're not so worried about, olds. And that just comes from, like, okay, if you're 24 years old, you should be dominating 19 and 20-year-old kids. Okay. And so older prospects are thought to have less upside in general, just from the way that they learn the game, and also the way that their bodies transform and get stronger. And people say your athletic peak is at like 27. Well, the closer you get to age 27, the better player you theoretically should be. So if this player is this productive at 23, but this player is this productive at 21, take the 21-year-old. Maybe there's more to it. Anyway, will the testing match the tape? That's the biggest thing for me. He's not going to fall out of round 1 for me. I pretty much guarantee you that. However, I will say, look at the truly, truly elite edges, especially the ones that are taken in the first round. The guys that are absolute dudes rushing the passer, they're 95th, 96th, 97th percentile athletes. Okay. RAS is above 9 for sure. And again, I know, watch the tape. I do watch the tape, I promise. But like, it's important. Okay. The space aliens, they thrive at tight end and they thrive at defensive end. And oddly, those are similar body types, especially when they're being recruited to college. It's your 6'5", 250 to 260 pound dudes. And the ones that move like nobody else moves are the ones that succeed. It's just, and look, there are exceptions to every rule. I understand that very well. The highest hit rate easily on pass rushers, super athletes. Let's see if Latu is a super athlete. And if he's not, and he's just a try-hard guy, try-hard guys succeed in the league all the time. Okay. That guys with marginal to slightly above marginal athleticism that just try harder than everybody else, they succeed, but he won't be a blue chipper anymore. He just probably have a round 1 grade for me. And those are, like I said, got to go into cons, or everybody would be, 1-1, take them all first overall. Not going to do that. Latu, I think, is kind of pie in the sky from a Packers fan's perspective, but if you're going to poke, holes at him, I would say the medical issue, his age, and then I just got to see, he's got to be a freak, got to be an alien, or I'm probably personally not taking you in the top 8, which is where I have him. So we'll see how that testing goes. Blue chipper for me. Packers fit. I was asked, this is an old Twitter bit, so if you've never interacted with me online, I apologize. What Packers pick would make you take your pants off? I would have no pants if the Packers took Laiatu Latu at any point in the draft, certainly at pick 25. I think he would immediately be a better prospect than LVN, right up there with Gary, frankly. And Gary's obviously much older into his career. And then, taking over for Preston Smith, whatever you have, and that's where it is. He is the Enagbare replacement as a rookie, and then eventually the Preston Smith replacement as a 3-headed monster that they kind of have or hope to have next season. I mean, they'd like Van Ness to take a big step and then have him be sort of a 3-headed monster with Preston and Rashawn, especially if Hafley wants to reduce LVN inside and have him rush from some 3-tech and some 4-eye stuff. I think that could be more of what they want to do. But the other thing that they do and have done is they have a second set of edge rushers. And that last year was Van Ness and Enigbare for a lot. I mean, they played together a lot. Enigbare is probably not coming back until Thanksgiving or Halloween, I would say at the very earliest. So it's important to understand, that they're probably going to be in some sort of the market for a fourth edge. I don't know if Latu and a fourth edge is, they're going to match from a value perspective, but as I said, my pants would be off. They're not in a position to burn multiple picks, I don't think, to run up and take a pass rusher. We'll see what happens in free agency. I, especially after Brian's press conference, am definitely more willing to entertain the idea that they'll take care of a need or two, not necessarily take care of, but they'll free themselves up in the draft by adding a veteran safety. They'll free themselves up in the draft by adding a back or re-signing AJ Dillon. They'll free themselves up in the draft by signing the love of my life, Kendall Fuller, at corner, and playing him at nickel or outside, either way. But I do think they're going to make one or two actual additions to the team. And what that does, of course, then is just allows you to take best player available instead of having to target these specific positions, which would be exciting because they have 5 top 100 picks and the ability to just go after the best guy. Or in this instance, which again, I don't even think I would endorse, but let's say they do sign Kendall Fuller. Well, you can take corner off of your list of things that has to happen because then you have Kendall Fuller, Carrington Valentine, Jair Alexander, and Eric Stokes. And will they all pan out? Not necessarily, but your first round pick might not pan out either. It's not necessary to go after a corner in the first 2 rounds. If they go out and do something like a Kendall Fuller, then you take one of those picks that you would have spent on a corner, package it with a pick to take a pass rusher, go up and take the best one in Laiatu Latu. That would be a way to do business. That would be a way that I would do business, although I don't know that it's necessarily going to happen with Brian, who, by the way, I think is doing a fantastic job. Please don't think that I'm trying critical of his process. I'm just saying right now, unless they address some needs in free agency, I would not move up to go get a pass rusher. Press man corner. If you identify one of the corners as the best press man guy in the draft, Nate Wiggins, you move up. I'd be okay with that. But pass rusher, that's sort of a luxury thing. We talked about Jatavion Sanders as a luxury. This is less of a luxury because of the Enigbare injury, but I wouldn't trade up to satisfy this particular luxury unless he does test like a freak and you completely pass his medicals, which then I think he's, one of the few surefire guys in this class. At his size, he's not too small to play DE or outside linebacker, whatever Hafley wants to do. You can do either one. Doesn't matter. You can play DN, put his hand in the dirt. He moves plenty fine to be an outside linebacker in a 3-4. I don't care. Again, pay attention to the combine. Final thing, my grade, blue chipper. One of 7 or 8 guys in this class that has, above a round 1 grade. A guy that I think is going to be a star. A guy that I think is going to go to Pro Bowls. Laiatu Latu, he stays healthy. He, kind of passes that little test at the combine. Blue chipper to me, player number 7 overall. Guys, thanks so much for watching this on YouTube or listening to this on your favorite podcast service. What can you do for me in return? Well, a couple things. Please check out the Green Bay Draft Guide brought to you by Packer Report. There should be a link in this video description or in this podcast description. And we have a promo code for you that is DAILY, DAILY, is in the daily draft. For 10% off one of those bad boys, and it is going to be the best Packer-specific draft guide you can get your hands on. I can promise you that. Check us out at PackerReport.com. We'd love to have you as a VIP member. Guys, that first month's $1 if you just kind of want to check out what we're about and the occasional thing that does get put behind the paywall, but there is no better way to support me or our writing staff than becoming a VIP at Packer Report. And finally, check me out at Ross Uglem on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And guys, like and subscribe. Anything and everything involved with the Pack a Day podcast. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day and go Pack Go.